Welcome to Chautauqua People. I'm John V. Our guest today is Kyle Keogh, Interim Chief Executive of Chautauqua Institution. Kyle is a graduate of Hamilton College in Dartmouth. He's a seasoned business executive with a track record in strategy, finance, technology, driving growth and enhancing sustainability of operations. He served in senior roles at Google for 16 years. Subsequently, he was Chief Business Officer at Keogh Genius, a venture-backed company, and is an adjunct professor at the Stern School of Business at New York University. Kyle served on the Board of Trustees of Chautauqua Institution from 2015 until 2023 and was appointed this spring to his current position. Kyle, how did your family make its way to Chautauqua?
Yes. So, John, thanks so much for having me. It's an honor to be here.
My pleasure.
So yes, my parents made their way when I was about 5. I was from Rochester, New York, specifically Pittsford, New York. And they heard about Chautauqua for some friends, came down for 1 week. My mom and dad both loved it. The kids, we were all able to get on our bikes and go wherever we wanted to. So there was intellectual and musical pursuits for my parents. And the kids could go off and they could have free time to themselves. So they started coming 1 week, then 2 weeks, and then by 1983, so from 6 years in, they bought their own cottage and never looked back.
What did you do when you were growing up here on the grounds?
Sure. So I started out just biking around and enjoying it. I went through children's school, and then went through Boys and Girls Club through about 8th grade. And then I went off and had a variety of really not so exciting jobs at Chautauqua. If people remember, there was a haircutting place right outside Chautauqua Institution, right near the lighthouse called Sweetwater. Mm-hmm. When I was 14, I wanted to buy a BMX bike. And my parents were like, great, if you want to do that, you have to make your own money. So I actually mucked the horse stalls for when I was 14 for $2 an hour, which seemed like a decent deal at the time. And then I worked one summer at the Athenaeum scrubbing pots and pans, and then switched over, upgraded myself to a dishwasher at Bellinger Hall. It was doing pots and pans. That's real hard work. And then I spent some time in maintenance at the main gate, spent some time checking tickets, was an auditor, and then I finished up in the Colonnade, which is where the Chautauqua administration is, working in finance. And then so I spent my summer, for my senior in college doing that, working for a guy named Joe Johnson, who folks may remember here, was the chief financial officer of Chautauqua. And then the next year I worked at 23 Wall Street. So I went straight from the Colonnade, from Chautauqua administration to Wall Street.
To Wall Street. And did they care about working in the Colonnade when you got to Wall Street?
It didn't come up that much, shockingly enough. But I did, it goes back and dates myself a little bit. That was the first time I got to use a spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet skills were incredibly helpful on Wall Street.
And you knew that from your college days, how to do the spreadsheet?
From my college days and also from working at Chautauqua, right?
Really?
When you wanted to work in finance, eventually you had a spreadsheet.
Goodness. And I'm impressed with that. Tell me about your experience here. And this morning you made a terrific statement to the assembled masses of the 1045. And I was just blown away by it. I wonder if you could sort of repeat what you shared. There are 3 main points.
Sure. Serving as interim chief executive, one way I want to make sure to connect with folks is we have a lot of people who come come for 1 week for Chautauqua. And the first thing they'll usually go to is our 10:45 a.m. lecture in the amphitheater. And so on Monday mornings, I like to spend about 3 to 5 minutes introducing myself and talking through some of the ideals for Chautauqua, right? What is really important to us. And for this morning, I highlighted 3 ideals. One is that we're a heads-up community versus a heads-down community. We put our cell phones in our pockets. We engage with the world around us. We look people in the eye as we walk by. We say hello. And we try to meet people if they're just standing in line, right? We're in a spot where people really want to engage in person, right? It's a very digital-centric world, and that's great in many regards, but we want to harken back and say, let's focus on our differentiation is the in-person experience. You can be intellectually curious and go to lectures. You can be big into recreation and go play golf or tennis or swim. You can be big into the arts and see the symphony or go paint for yourself. And you can really go deep into religion. And we want to make sure that people fully engage when they're here. We're usually coming for a week, maybe 2. And the world out there will be there when they go back, right? It's still going to be roughly the same, but this is a great chance to disconnect and really get involved in person. The second one is we're at our best when we have diverse perspectives, whether it's Republican or Democrat, whether it's different religions. We have denominational houses across the Protestant religions, across Catholicism, Jewish houses, and a growing Islamic community that's hopefully going to get bigger. And we have it across races, and we have it across geographies. And we love getting all those different perspectives together. I use the analogy that Steve Jobs uses, which was, if you take a set of rocks, just standard rocks, and you put them in a rock tumbler, and they tumble around overnight, they come out pristine and beautiful together. And we love that about the community. If you get different people with different perspectives and they rub off on each other a little bit, you walk away with a much better perspective on an issue and on the world. And you both have joy and you have growth. And the last one is we're multi-generational. We have 6-year-olds who bike for the first time and can go all around Chautauqua, and for a few dollars can go to our youth activity center and get lunch and some candy, and just the freedom of biking wherever you want to go, right? That so many people experience in the youth, but they don't experience now, is something that's great joy for those kids. And on the other end, we have the 80 and 90-year-olds who are on their first scooter ride, who want to make sure to still access the great things in the world, can go to lectures, see friends, go to concerts. And by getting on a scooter, they have the ability to do that around the place. And we love all ends of that distribution.
Oh, it's a multi-generational facility or program. How many generations have you seen here of your family?
So my parents were the first ones, and now then myself, my wife, my brother and sister spend a lot of time at Chautauqua. And then the third generation is 9 grandchildren that for the week of the 4th of July, we're almost all here, right? And it's a place we just all congregate together. And everyone gets to do their own thing, right? We get together for dinner. We actually do our own NFL fantasy football draft, which I realize is a little early. And Josh Allen got taken way too early in the draft because we're a little biased. But everyone gets to do it, and then we all get the chance to be together. And that's just a unique moment to get a full week where everybody can really enjoy time together.
And you have a big house then?
So we actually have our cottage, and then my parents had a cottage. We bought our own cottage 10 years ago. So between the two, we can fit all the people.
That's great. So you got the space for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your family has a great time here.
Mm-hmm.
And as with my bunch, 4th of July is the time to come.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the ideal for Chautauqua, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get to the hard business here. Mm-hmm. You've been appointed now as interim chief executive.
Mm-hmm.
What were your instructions from the board?
Sure. So with the agreement I have with the board, and it was a very full interview process, I will say, for a 1-year role, because it's so important, I think, in this transition, is asking me to do 3 things, because you should always do stuff in 3s. One is deliver an amazing Chautauqua season this summer, right? Make sure that it's a phenomenal experience for everyone who comes to the Chautauqua institution.
Mm-hmm.
Number 2 is get us on better financial sustainable footing, right? We had some COVID money that came through, some short-term philanthropy, and we built in some long-term costs. And we need to address that. You need to make sure that costs match, revenues match expenses to be an ongoing entity, while at the same time making sure that we're incredibly relevant for now and for the future. We've been around for 150 years. We plan to be around for 150 years more. And the third is, we had some discontent in the community. Some people in particular thought it was too liberal, it wasn't balanced enough. Others in particular are also like, we're not as diverse a community as we should be. And we're not as civil in our debates for a while. It sort of looked like the rest of society. And so the mandate was to get through all those, to make sure an incredible season, which if anyone's been to any of the programming is phenomenal, right? Whether that's going to lectures by noted lecturers. This week we have a Harvard Business School professor. We've got folks from JoJo Industries, which makes Purell. Couldn't think of a more timely place to talk about business there and innovation. To amazing concerts like Guster and the Mountain Goats this Friday night, and then Avett Brothers coming, and Morgan Freeman. So some phenomenal programming coming through. So that part is going extremely well. The center part is hard, right? You have to go through and figure out, in particular, expense reductions to how to match that. You can grow revenue, but you have to plan the expense side, and that we're working through, trying to figure out what those right answers are, and announcing those decisions in the fall. But going through. We started for religious reasons, so we'll start with a discernment process. How do we discern what's really important to us, right, and how we want to make those changes? And that's hard, but we'll be done. And every nonprofit goes through these at different points, and we will get through this. It will be unpleasant, but we will get through this. And some decisions later on can be undone, right? Like most decisions are not permanent in life. We tore down our amphitheater about 10 years ago, which was a big decision. And once you tear that down, you have no path but forward. But most other decisions you can change or revisit later on. Even when we changed over and allowed alcohol inside Chautauqua, that felt like at the time a massive decision. Now we look back and we're like, why did we not do that sooner? And then the third one on the communities, we've gotten much better balance in terms of Republican and Democrat and making sure that we see from both sides. We still have some work to do on diversity. We are still not as diverse a group as we'd like to be. But we also are getting much better in terms of civil dialogue. In particular, debating points, not people. We don't talk about Trump or Biden, for instance. We talk about immigration policy, right? We talk about monetary policy. We talk about what are the important issues of the day around AI, right? And what impact that will have, right? And those are much better discussions to have than saying, I believe this, I believe that. They're around your point of view based on facts and logic.
I thought this morning's lecture was exemplary. And again, an opportunity for some political name calling, none of it. But issues were discussed back and forth, and that seems to be the new mold. And congratulations for selecting and bringing them in.
Thank you. It's great to have those discussions. They're exactly the discussions we need to have on important issues. And we've lost some of that to civil dialogue, but we can easily bring it back, right, as society. And modeling that and saying, this is how we should not just explore the best in human values, how we should embody the best. And one of the best ways is to have civil discourse and to have civil debates. And sometimes you change your opinion, sometimes you don't, but you at least get a better understanding.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, you're in this difficult job. Methinks you're having fun. I hope so.
Yes.
How long do you anticipate serving in this role?
So right now, the expectation is through May. Chautauqua has just hired Heidrick & Struggles, which is a very prominent executive search firm to search for the next president. They're going through a process right now to figure out what is it that the community and others want in a particular president, right? You don't just hire a president, you hire a president who's good at fundraising, or who's great at the arts, or is great at community relations, or is a great business operator. But what is really important as we think about the next 8 to 10 years, because that's how long the next person probably is in for. And then they'll put that out and then go solicit candidates. And they're just going to make a decision on, do you put that out and try to interview people during the winter, or do you wait and actually interview candidates during next summer, right, when people can see it at the Chautauqua Institution live. So it's through May. It could be shorter. It could be a little longer. I told them I'm more than happy to stay through next summer if they need me, but I'm also fine if we finish early, if they find the right person. It's all about really finding the right next leader.
Now, let's go back a little bit. You served on the board of trustees. Can you review what your major accomplishments were there, probably the committee work,
Sure.
and how that fits with what you're doing now?
Sure. So I was on multiple committees. I served on the hotel board, which is the Athenaeum Hotel Board, the whole time. And then I chaired the nominating governance when we selected our last board chair and selected a lot of our current trustees. And then my main committee I ran was the marketing and brand committee there for about 5 years. That one changed the alcohol policy, or was a big part of changing the alcohol policy, putting in the first bar at the Athenaeum, and then a bar down at Three Taps, which is down by the bell tower, and then the afterwards bar and cafe. So a little bit was probably Let Them Drink, which it's a place where people have always enjoyed a good time. They've just done it at their house. This was really around adding alcohol to other areas, because a lot of people are coming for shorter periods of time. And if you came for the whole summer, you could have drinks in your own porch. But if you come for a week or a couple days, you didn't know how to do that. Have the space to do that. And this allowed people the space to congregate and have a few drinks. And we've had no issues where we've seen anyone with drunken disorderly or any of these things. And so that was probably a big part of it. We'll see that continue. We're going to test alcohol in the amphitheater this fall at Bonnie Raitt concert, with the full expectation that we will actually allow the sale of alcohol in the amphitheater next year for major concerts. We'll see how it goes. We can always pull it back. If we come in and actually people are over imbibing or it gets dirty or anything else, we can pull it back. But just how Broadway, for instance, allows alcohol in there, if they can allow it on Broadway, we can probably allow it on Friday nights for major concerts. But we'll see how the community responds to that. The other one is I worked through COVID on the launch of CHQ Assembly, which is our online capabilities that are now on YouTube, which is a great way for people to experience Chautauqua without having to come to Chautauqua, or if they've come, to extend it. If they come for 1 week, but you're like, I'd love to see the 9, can you then go and explore that, right? And that's been a great success in terms of getting viewership. Now we need to make sure we have the right model for that financially, but it's an important part of Chautauqua. And then other things like how do we actually attract new audiences? We did a grounds access pass. We did other areas to really get new audiences in there. And we've had some success there, but we need to continue to go a lot further there, in particular more diverse audiences.
Mhm. Have you had any discoveries while you're in this new role? You've had the committee, so you're very much of an insider, but a different role, lots of people to meet.
So I've definitely, in the last 4 weeks, which is how long the season's been going on, I've met more people than I did in the prior 50 years almost 50 years coming to Chautauqua, which has been great. I'm trying to remember all the names. I'm still in a little work there. But to a person, what has surprised me in a very positive way is how much they love Chautauqua and how much they want it to be successful and how excited they are about giving input for the future of Chautauqua and how we discern what is really right for Chautauqua. They consider it part of most Chautauquans consider it part of their identity. And that's not just people who've been there for a long time, that's new folks. When people get there, they often just love and have an amazing experience. Like we would love to get more people from around Chautauqua County and the lake in this area to come. I had dinner last night with some folks who grew up in Warren, PA, who've been coming to Chautauqua for a long time. We need to draw more from our area. We want to be a part of the Chautauqua County community, not separate from it. We have gates because we have programming and we need to pay for those areas, but we want more people to come through those. And we also want more of our Chautauquans to step up because there's just a great part of being this community. And that has been not the surprise, but the delight of seeing like people are actually really excited and invested in the place. The other surprise, some people have incredibly firm handshakes. And when you shake like 100 hands a day, I don't know how the politicians do it, right? You really got to work. I really got to work on my grip strength.
And one of them said that he got black and blue spots from from all of the handshaking.
That was a surprise. It was it's a small sort of fun surprise, but it was like, oh wow, yes, some of you are really vigorous in this.
Yeah. But at least we're not at the point of some of these clubs where you're supposed to wear little fancy gloves or something like that.
We are far from that point. We like to shake hands. We like to stare each other in the eye and make sure to have good conversations.
Right. Now, one of your decisions was to close the Washington office, and that decision was announced very early.
Yes.
Wonder if you could sort of review the decision making on that and where we stand.
So one of the things we've tried to do at Chautauqua is extend and make sure we have an impact beyond Chautauqua Institution. And part of that was putting an office in DC, in particular to get to know the foundations that grant a lot of money. And also, those are folks who come and speak at Chautauqua very often, right? We have a lot of folks from the DC area here. As we go through though, and we looked at it, it's fairly expensive to have an office in DC, a nice office in DC. And we can easily go down and visit there versus having an office. So I made the decision to say, okay, if we're having some financial, we want to make sure we're financially sustainable. Why don't we cut back in the areas where we have not yet seen the return on investment, or doesn't have as great a return on investment as some others. We can always get another office in DC or New York or somewhere else later on, but also in this world, when that office was created, it was pre-COVID. Now in a post-COVID world, people are used to going on Zoom, and you can do lots of meetings that way, and then come in as needed. So I think that was a good decision to say, hey, if we're going to make expense cuts, let's start with something that impacts the staff, but also is an area where we just haven't seen as high of a return on investment. Again, we could always come back in a few years and say, hey, we want to put a small office here. It's not an irreversible decision. But for now, it seems like, why don't we cut that expense and make sure we're focusing on the expenses that impact the in-person experience at Chautauqua.
One of the things that I hope will be reinstated is we used to have a series of grand luncheons where I am in Raleigh, and we had former president or vice presidents who came down. I've got a video of 100 people in a fancy dining room, and just a magnificent program. Hope those can be reinstated.
Okay, we should definitely take a look at that. I'd love to learn more about that. That postdates my childhood.
And I need to, I'll talk with the staff here.
Okay.
We'll send you a couple of links, and into the fall when it's quiet,
Okay, that'd be great.
take a look at a couple of those.
That'd be great. I know that Teddy Roosevelt came way back when. And if any sitting president would like to come back, we'd love to have them.
I want a Grant too.
Okay.
Smoking a cigar.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So, where do you anticipate Chautauqua going in 5 or 10 years?
Sure. So I think the first part is we are around these four pillars, right? Arts, education, recreation, and religion. And those, I think, will always be the core of Chautauqua. We started for religion. We were early innovators in recreation, right? That was before everybody else really was like, oh, we need to get outside and jog and be vigorous. Because remember, in 1874 when we started, we were at the beginning of switching from an agrarian economy to an industrial economy. In an agrarian economy, you don't need to get exercise. Your job gets you plenty of exercise. But you go into an industrial one, and it actually becomes pretty important, right? You need to get out and do things to be physically fit. And so we do a lot on that area. Then we launched the Chautauqua Literary and Scientific Circle, right, which was around educating, in particular women back then, who didn't have an education post at a certain point in their lives. And this gave them a great opportunity. And then arts came last, but it's a really important run for us because art brings joy, right? And so we try to support and embody sort of the major arts areas. So I think you'll see all of those areas. The other you'll see is a real deep investment in how do we make sure the 9 weeks when everyone's here, we really bring the best of it and explore and embody the best in human values around those areas. The things that you'll also see is, in June and September, we'll try and figure out other ways to extend that. It's not quite as intensive as our 9 weeks, but is a great opportunity for people to still relax and really engage. Mm-hmm. And then we'll continue to make sure that this is seen outside, but sort of I look at like the Masters as a model for us, which is a strange one for a nonprofit. But the Masters says we want to be the best sporting event to attend in the world. And it's amazing on video, on TV, but when you attend it, I've only had the chance to go once, it is extraordinary. And we aim to have that same experience. Like, can we have such an extraordinary experience that everybody wants to come to it? And it's shared outside, but really it's such an incredible experience in person. In a world where digital is the predominant, can we do the incredible in-person experience?
Mm-hmm. Now, one question I always like to ask toward the end here, and we have such depth of people who are at Chautauqua, as staff and as guests. Mm-hmm. And we like to keep a focus toward the younger folks. Mm-hmm. So let's say a young Chautauquan approaches you and says, sir, I would like to have a career like yours, doing technical stuff and then transitioning into general management. Mm-hmm. What would your counsel be?
Sure. Thanks. So I love that question, and I spend a lot of time when I was at Google and other spots, and as a professor at NYU, and an adjunct professor at NYU, answering a lot of these questions. I think there are two strategies. One is if you find something you love and is important and you're good at it, go deep within that, right? Go deep into healthcare or go deep into a particular in finance and get really, really good at it. I can think there's tremendous value in that if you find that spot that you like, that you love, that you're good at and is valued. But for most folks, that's really hard to find early on. And instead, I look at it and say, you're probably going to have 5 or 6 careers in your career. And so you want to have range. You want to have a way of looking at the world that as AI comes through or a new technology comes through in these areas, that your skill set is malleable and that you have the relationships and the knowledge and the expertise and the ability of critical thinking and communication that you can actually work in many areas. So if I look at my career, I started in finance at JP Morgan, I worked in consulting at McKinsey, I then worked at a small company for a little while, and then I was at IBM and Google, right? It was all very different things, but because I had such a broad-based education, I was actually really able to do that. Charlie Munger, who was Warren Buffett's number 2 for, literally, like he just unfortunately passed, 100 years, said you want to have a lattice work of frameworks. You want to have the ability to look at a problem from multiple perspectives, and when you have that perspective across psychology, economics, biology, you can actually be much smarter about decisions and you can well outthink a machine. So I think that that's one of the smartest things to do is get like a liberal arts education or a broad-based education. That's if you don't have a particular passion. There's other part of it is on the passion side is you can do it through college or you can do it through vocational school, right? You can become a plumber, or you can become one of these areas. And those have very long careers to them and successful careers. Right, so it's a question of what you really want to do in these areas. There's one that's around range and there's one that's around deep expertise in an area that you know will be valued for a long period of time and that you like and you're good at. And I think it's sort of a barbell strategy. You want to do one or the other. You don't want to get sort of stuck in the middle.
So some flexibility and some depth in some areas where you're really strong. This has been great. What else do we need to cover from your perspective to share with the community?
So what I'd say is, so I've been coming to Chautauqua for a long time. It's a really important place for my family. I think it's an important place to where we can actually have civil discourse, we can have fun and find pure joy in the world, but also be more constructive. And that's why I was honored to come back and take this position, because my family plans to be coming here for a long time. But in addition to what we do within the community, we also want to make sure that we have impact outside the community, that we're involved around all of Chautauqua Lake. Right? Some part of that is maintaining and improving the quality of the lake, but it's also being a big part of the community and not just coming into ourselves. So one part I'd like to say is I'd love to have more folks from outside Chautauqua Institution, from Chautauqua County, from Warren, Pennsylvania, all the way to Erie, come and visit Chautauqua more regularly, right? We want to be a vibrant part of the community. And the other is, but we want to actually exit out and actually be more of a part of the community around us, because we don't live in isolation. We want to make sure to be part of this community.
I agree with that, and I know several Chautauquans who made no friends in Mayville or the county. They come back year after year, and I'm going to stop with them and say, hey, get out and meet some new people, try some different experiences.
No, and there's some amazing places around this area. I love going to see it. I went to the Roger Troy Peterson Institute on Saturday night for a fundraiser. That is such a beautiful spot right down there, right? So incredible. We just joined the Viking Club right across the lake, so it's good to be able to motor across the lake and see different folks. And we'll get even more engaged. I'll be around a lot this year, and I'm going to spend a lot of time outside Chautauqua Institution once we finish our season.
That's great. We are about out of time. Thank you so very much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Mm-hmm.